I'm going to just pop a couple of Tic Tacs in my mouth. Do you want a Tic Tac?
Yes, please. Is this how loud you're going to be talking, Nick? Yes. Only you can really know that, though, Nick. Yes. I can't. I mean, we're not professionals. I can't be sure.
I really wanted to be in the professionals when I was younger, and then they re-show it on a satellite channel or something. Shit.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I don't know. I feel this is the first one we've done in on a Monday in ages, and also on a Monday lunchtime.
Yes,
and there's a upside and a downside to that. The upside is energy.
Yeah.
For me, though,
downside's energy as well. Have you met me today?
I think you're doing fine.
I've got the energy of a sedated sloth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that. And also the downside for me as well is that how I feel at lunchtime on a Monday really does depend on how my morning's gone. I work in the office.
Oh, this is going to be a lumpy trip.
It's fine. I'll put it aside.
Good.
I once thought about doing because I really like workplace blogs, or I certainly used to when people still had RSS readers and stuff like that.
When people could actually sort of maintain some form of anonymity to allow them to speak candidly.
Yeah. And so the ones about being police officers or the ones that were school teachers and stuff.
The really useful, insightful ones that people obviously it necessitated their hiding their true identity to make them engaging. Yeah, I remember that.
And at the time, I always thought, wow, some of the stuff, because whenever you're in an office and anything remotely wacky happens or something, or people have a stupid conversation, someone always says, you could make a TV series about this, or a sitcom or something like that. It wouldn't be funny. We have a laugh, don't we? It's crazy, some of the stuff we have to deal with. And I never thought that, because that's stupid. But I often thought, oh God, those, professional the blogs about the workplace, I really like those. Those are really good. The problem is everything you have to deal with in a sort of a servicey office situation, open plan office situation. Everything you're dealing with is so specific that not only would you have to give far more detail than you really should to make the scenarios that happen work on a blog. So anonymity would be a problem. But at the same time, there's so much history and weirdness to every different sort of character in an office that you'd end up getting so frustrated with how much explanation you'd have to do at the beginning of every post that instead you just go, I'll tell you what, just go and watch the British Office instead. It'll take you less time to watch all 2 series of the British Office.
I don't think even that doesn't really capture the existential horror.
No.
I was thinking about at some point I might talk about some of the stuff I've been. I can't at the moment.
I don't know what the statute of limitations on that stuff is.
I can't at the moment. But I'm thinking about because it's inevitable it's going to happen. I've been thinking about working up a script treatment for a British version of American Horror Story.
I think that'd be excellent,
and it will be about the true existential horror of working in an office with mental health issues. It'd be really interesting. I won't be really interesting.
The thing about, and I know we talked about the office before, not the actual places where we work. We talked about the TV show. You prefer, and I think long term, taken as a whole, I think I probably prefer the US office as well, because it's just nicer. It's less depressing to watch it over a really long period. But the one thing you could just never imagine, it's like Nathan Barley or something like that.
I'm rewatching that at the moment. Funny you should mention it.
The 10th anniversary was recently or something, wasn't it? It's
totally Mexico.
The characters in them, and in the office specifically, they just seem so outlandish when you watch them on a screen. Like David Brent, seems like Ricky Gervais being the most horrible Ricky Gervais is capable of being, and skin crawling.
At the time, my boss was very genuinely very reminiscent to Ricky Gervais, to the point, David Brent, rather, to the point that I remember our service was merging with another to create a larger offering, and he presented to various people across the region that would be affected by it, and actually used at the end of his slideshow, he posed the question, why us? Click the button, and Tina Turner's Simply the Best played.
Seriously?
I'm not joking.
No irony?
And no irony whatsoever, and that was during the office's initial run back in the early aughts.
There are problems with Ricky Gervais that we don't need to get into, and people get very passionate about him for various reasons that aren't entirely unearned. But I think that one of the things I've never quite understood, I kind of understand but never quite understood as well, is a lot of people don't like him and don't like David Brent because they see one as just the other. That's just what Ricky Gervais is like, and so they don't like it. Creeps them out. But no, that's a really on point character. That's a really on point created character. He might have some similar traits in common with David Brent, with Ricky Gervais. Certainly looks the same.
Very similar. Although Ricky Gervais is much thinner.
Yeah, no, he is, isn't he? But that character, and Nathan Barley as well, and a lot of the other characters in that show, as much as they seem like outlandish stereotypes, they're not really at all.
Do you think like there's a super secret like medicine or something that people who get to a certain level of celebrity take that like makes them buff?
Maybe buff and thinner.
You know, you can be sort of quite chubby and fun for a while, but once you get sort of like, you know, a few years of fame at an elevated level, all of a sudden they become buff.
Like Charlie Brooker and Ricky Gervais.
Charlie Brooker is a very good example.
Yeah.
He's beautiful looking now, and he used to be one of us. I mean, he still speaks to me, in a very special way.
In your head, is he one of the voices?
Oh, don't. No, he's not one of the voices. Like, I don't generally have voices, but I think I've told you before about these tablets I have to take in the evenings. They help me sleep. They're a sedative, but they're also an antidepressant. They have helped anxiety levels and so forth, which is all good. But as I'm going to sleep, I start getting audio hallucinations occasionally. So, like, I have on occasion sort of found myself lifting my what?
That's weird.
Yeah, no, it's not pleasant. So I have this sort of race to try and fall asleep before they properly kick in now. It's a lot of fun taking antidepressants, I've got to tell you.
If I had to choose between voices that I'd hear speaking to me, I'd definitely choose probably Charlie Brooker and Frankie Boyle.
Yeah.
And the reason I choose
They're
those
quite angry voices you've chosen.
Yeah,
there.
but most people would be like, why would they just be horrible to you? But the good thing about both of those voices is it's really clear to me in both cases that they loathe themselves more than they loathe anyone else.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't feel like if they were saying to me, you're a shithead, you're rubbish. Oh yeah, you're looking at yourself in the mirror to brush your teeth, but look at that hateful face. You like your beard at the moment, but it's going in all... And deep down, it's going in all different directions. Deep down...
Your beard or...
My beard.
Yeah.
Deep down, I'd know, because of the undertow to both of their personas, that they hated themselves far more than that. So I'd be like... They'd be like, "Yeah, you're a scumbag," and I'd be like, "Oh, come on, bring it in."
Yeah.
I'd want to give those two. Whereas if it was a Ricky Gervais or a Noel Fielding or something like that, you wouldn't. I don't know why I picked him or Russell Brand. I'd be like, "Yeah, you really do think you're better than me, don't you?"
I'm
That's
not
how
sure.
I'd feel.
Yeah, you and I are on very different sides of the fence, I think, with Russell Brand.
We don't need to spend another show talking about him.
Well, I did watch an episode of The Trues before I came out.
The only reason I mentioned him was because I mentioned Noel Fielding, and it's a pretty straight line to get to Russell Brand from there, or a wobbly sort of metrosexual line. Maybe not straight. And at the same time, I thought Noel Fielding's maybe a bit of a... feels a bit like an old-timey, obscure reference, so I'd have to pick someone a bit more current.
I don't know who's current.
No, I don't either.
No.
Russell Brand was certainly around a lot at the end of last year. But then so was...
John Oliver.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Maybe John Oliver.
Jolliver.
Jolliver. Is that what we're calling him now?
That's right, yeah.
The But I don't hear voices. They all stopped talking to me a long time ago.
Good.
It's very lonely.
It's not good. It's not something I'd want particularly.
I
have enough trouble berating myself in my own voice without having other voices in my head berating me.
There was an article, a blog post. It was a blog post, but because it was on the Guardian site, it's an article yesterday written by a Matt Haig, who I think is maybe in his 30s, I guess, a writer. I didn't know the name, but it's being shared a lot as one of those insightful articles. I'm doing hands, and I should.
You almost did air quotes. You were very close to it.
It's being shared around as one of those insightful articles about that really tells you everything you need to know about a subject, and the subject is mental health.
Okay.
And it is really good. It's a really good piece of writing, and it does have some facts and statistics. They're largely statistics you've seen in other places, but they are good. And it does raise a certain level of awareness. Awareness is one of those words I tend to put in air quotes, but not in this particular case. But it amounts more to a testimonial about his own mental health issues, which doesn't make it any less valid. But I feel uncomfortable with the idea of sharing it as if I know you, James, and probably the listener, because most of our listeners are probably invested or more conscious of mental health, especially male mental health issues, than the Joe Public. Jublick. So this article isn't really any different from. It doesn't really say anything different from as much as everyone's. It's very personal. And that's why I say it amounts more to a testimonial, but I couldn't share it in good conscience as this real gotcha about mental health issues, because it's really similar to a lot of similar testimonials that we've seen. Everyone who writes about male mental health, or just mental health in general, but everyone who writes about subjects like that tends to start by editorializing or confessing to, or giving testimony to their own experiences. And maybe that is the best way, because it's the best way to make people feel some empathy for you or some sympathy for you. So it's a really good piece. I will put a link to it in the show notes, which you can find at twogrownmen.net, the specific episodes post for this episode. But yeah, if you want to share another one of those posts with your friends online who don't really understand stuff, it's quite a good one.
Cool.
There isn't that interesting section in it, though, which I'd never really registered bothered me before. But you know the equivalents that we quite often, and we talk about it on here as well, that if you've got something physical wrong with you, people understand that more. And so he's got a sequence of quite good examples of sentences that make it seem ridiculous.
My GP brought up that very subject. When she was trying to G me up and tell me to stop, sorry.
Stop feeling sorry for yourself.
No, but sort of, she was very good at guiding me through the acceptance stage of my depression. And again, I've mentioned it before, but I cannot, just having a good GP is I'm so lucky.
It's so difficult to get.
Yeah, because it's luck of the draw, essentially. But she was guiding me through the acceptance process recently. She was using the cancer example. It's like, well, if you had cancer, you wouldn't have a problem coming to see me, would you? You'd expect treatment. You'd expect people to understand that you're not well. So mental health, in terms of it being an actual health issue, it's no different.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And it's a really good comparison.
I worry about it a little bit, though, because it's...
Well, it's a really good comparison to make people feel more accepting of their own health. And it works the first 200 or 300 times you use it to talk about how insensitive people are. And at this article, one of the things it talks about is how it's interesting. And I guess it does it because it's the only way you can really gauge the health cost of any health condition is by working out how many people have died of it. And so the only concrete way you can come up with a number that you can bludgeon people with is to talk about suicide.
Yeah.
But actually, while I was reading this, it's the first time I've really thought about it, that while you're thinking about mental health, suicide rates are a good way to identify that as a blunt instrument, to identify that number, to give a quantity. But actually, like, there are so many other things, so many other lifestyle problems that lead to poor health that we have, that I think we've talked about it a little bit before, but food issues, for example, a lot of the time when we take drugs to excess, we do it because it helps. But sometimes when people...
Is this an intervention?
No, not at all. No, I was thinking mainly about food. Like, I'm very aware of my own poor relationship with food in the last year.
It's all right. It's funny you mention it, because I'm off to see the GP on Wednesday, and we both expect her to be talking to me about how we treat what we think I've got type 2 diabetes, which is lifestyle. Obviously a lifestyle disease. I'm aware that I have food issues, and I don't know how to get on top of them. My life is defined by food. You know, the best things about me is I love to cook. So social occasions are generally built around cooking. I like to be able to provide nice food for my family, but I overeat awfully because it makes me feel good, because I feel bad so much of the time, and it's so complicated, and food's a really hard one to get on top of. I was watching it, I'm afraid, as part of this Russell Brand thing, but it's part of a larger conversation about the addictiveness of sugar. And I crave sugar constantly, and you know, I like my weaknesses there are wine, gums and licorice.
All right.
So sugary jelly sort of sweets are what I go to, but you know, they're also, that's a lie to the fact that because I feel bad, I like to smoke dope.
Yeah.
And I don't like alcohol. I've stopped drinking alcohol completely. And I'm, apart from my medication, I'm not really interested in any other sort of, stimulants. I have a cup of coffee in the morning, but that's it. I have one cup of coffee. But, you know, kind of everything that goes with, you know, my smoking, all of the stuff that is causing me my lifestyle is causing illnesses. So diabetes, you know, being overweight, smoking, obviously, you know, is you know, I feel it making me ill. I actually feel like at the moment I've had quite a few health issues, and I actually feel a physical sense of decay. I feel like I'm, you know, crumbling away sort of slowly, and it's but I don't know, you know, I think treating the depression should help it, but I still can't really cope with my life, you know, certainly my food issues. I find really hard to get around it, and because it's part of it, you know, every day you have to eat. We all have to eat, but it's, you know, so it becomes, you know, I keep kidding myself that what I'm eating is fine. It's like, there's no problem.
Well, because it's not about just, you're right that it isn't, you hit on something that I was thinking about but couldn't quite put into words a minute ago, which is where my relationship with food is really similar, I think. And it's definitely something that's got worse over the last year, but that it's not like you can just quit. It's not like if you've got a problem with, I'm not trying to diminish problems with alcohol or substances that are causing you problems. It's not like you can just quit eating. No. So you have to trick yourself or work out. You've got to draw a much more subtle line. Yeah. So it's like, well, what are you going to cut out? You're going to use everything low fat instead? Well, that's weird, and it's a much wobblier line, because you're putting the thing that you have a problem with. You have to have it in your life all the time. You have to eat a couple of times a day. I find I don't have a weakness for sugar. I don't. Well, maybe it is sugar deep down, but I find that last thing at night, I have to compulsively eat something, just because just because I'm not going to get to until the morning or so. I don't know how.
Comforting. Food is comforting. And I think another problem that you've got, that's very peculiar to food and alcohol is, our social lives are built around one or the other or both. So, for example, we've got Nick and I are both turning 40 in the next, myself in a week and a half, which is, and again with this, I don't think it helps this sort of general feeling of decay I have at the moment. It's making 40 seem more significant than it should. But we decided we'd go out on Nicky's birthday as a joint thing between the two of us, but it's to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Of course it'd be to a restaurant. We're going to eat. What else are we going to do? Sort of sit in a field and talk to each other. I mean, that'd be nice, but, it's cold in April.
And maybe it's a lie I tell myself, but like one of the times when my wife really, Amy picks up on my eating is when we're at a party or something.
Yeah.
Because when there's buffet food or something, I've always seen that as all bets being off.
See, I go the other way. So you eat quite a lot with the buffet, do you?
Well, just in any situation where there's food that either someone else has made or, I mean, you've seen me when I've come over for dinner at your place.
Oh, God, yeah.
Either when it's food that someone else has made or it's food that I have paid for and there's some sort of all-you-can-eat quotient to it or something like that.
So I'm a secret eater. Because I'm ashamed and I try and hide my shame. So when we have people over, I think Jane and Steve, who Jane obviously appears on the other podcast we do. Steve's appeared on a version of it. We talk about them a lot on that, and they're probably sort of the friends that we see most regularly around our house, and they come around and I'll cook for them. And I will I'll take myself off into the kitchen to do the washing up, air quotes, you can't see them. But what I'm doing is actually, like, if there's a little bit of leftovers, I'm stuffing the leftovers.
You do that as well.
Because I don't want to be seen to be overeating in front of people. I want to secretly eat more, when no one can see what I'm doing, and I feel ashamed. Like, last night, what was I doing last night? We'd had something that was quite tasty. Or I don't know. And I'd gone into the kitchen. Nicola was in a different room. I'd gone into and I was just finishing the last mouthful as Nicola came in. I was quickly trying to finish eating it because I didn't want her to see me eating because I'm ashamed of it.
We're in, you're in a kind of an open plan situation, whereas we've got a separate room for our kitchen.
Oh, she was in the other annex.
Oh, and the amount of times I've been convinced that Amy must have been able to hear the spoon going in the bolognese that we'd just eaten. And we make enough that we can freeze some. That's interesting because
I've got a tactic now with bolognese. Is I put because we always have leftovers. I'm going to make it tomorrow. Actually, funny enough, and I'll put some carrots in. Nice way to get hidden veg in for Scarlett. But what I do now to try and stop myself overeating, straight in a bowl, straight in the fridge because I don't like it cold.
See, that's not a bad idea, but we're not organised enough for that, and maybe we need to be. I
have to force myself to do it. But if I leave it in the pan and it's sort of at a, sort of room temperature, I can eat it until the pan's empty, and then I feel guilty and full. I'm not quite as bad now as I was, at the absolute depths of my depression last year. But there was a point when I was going to bed where I look back and I couldn't remember the last time I felt hungry. Because I was eating so much, I couldn't remember the last time I was genuinely hungry.
Well, the weird thing is when Amy's not around, and if there's for a couple of days or whatever, and there's not food in the house, not snacks in the house. We don't have a lot of snacks in the house anyway.
I get very grumpy when there aren't snacks in the house.
I'm normally okay. I cannot eat for a couple of days, and I think a lot of it is down to my relationship with having been really, really skint in the past. Like, I was living in a shared house really early with not like when I was about 17, with not really any money for food.
Sure.
So I got into, I used to really enjoy it actually. I got into the habit of making soup, but it was just soup with whatever.
Yeah.
And you can make, and because what you're really making the most of, because I was vegetarian at the time as well, what you're really making the most of is how far you can stretch an OXO cube.
Yeah.
Because literally, once you add a vegetable OXO cube to enough water, you've got a soup, and then anything else you put in there, like pasta or anything, that's just a bonus, or potato, and you can make something that seems like a substantial food. But then when I was in my 20s...
Just to clarify, if I might, you don't have a soup, you have a stock. But that's fine. That's
so you have a soup once you start adding stuff to it?
Kinda.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm happy with what I'm saying, because I was only a teenager then anyway. In my mid-20s, though, there were periods of time when I had so little money, when I was living in actually, it probably got the worst it ever got when I was in my early 30s, and I was living in a studio flat. And when I worked at Forbidden Planet as a manager, the pay they used to give managers, it wasn't really enough if you already had some outstanding, like some small outstanding debts already, for you to also have your own flat. But circumstances had meant that I wasn't, a relationship broke up, and I had to find somewhere. There wasn't anyone I could share with, and so I ended up in a studio flat on my own. And there were periods of time when I had a bag of lentils to last me a week.
Wow.
And I managed. Yeah. I wasn't the healthiest I've ever been, but I managed. And so I can go a really long time without eating. But when there's food in the house, it becomes a problem.
See, it's funny. I can go a long time without eating as well. Say, for example, in the past when I've gone away with work and I don't want to be seen eating. So I'll survive on virtually nothing. For like 1, 2, 3 days, I can go really easily. If there's like social embarrassment potentially involved. I think like when you've come away with me, I don't eat excessively when I'm out, because I hate eating. I remember went to LSCC and we had a burger outside that pub, and I felt awful eating that because there were people watching the fat man eat, and it's like.
So that's really, I mean, it's not interesting, it's depressing, but it's also quite interesting. Because it's the opposite of how I mean, I don't feel any food shame.
Yeah, but a lot of my mental health issues are around paranoia about how people perceive me, which is something that I've had for as long as I can remember, like since I was a kid. So
yeah, I can relate to that a little bit, but mine has never been really food related, but that's almost a problem for me because I've conned myself into thinking a lot of things. It's like you say about big helpings, because regular meal times are a relatively recent thing for me. I don't mind like the last 5 or 10 years, 5 or 6 years probably. I don't feel bad about stocking up at meal times. My problem has become all of that extra
snacking.
Yeah, I was already overweight. I mean, a doctor told me towards the end of me looking into sorting out my snoring, a doctor did comment that I was overweight. That was 2 or 3 years ago. I've never been exactly fit, but in the last year it's got bad. And I don't know if it's to do with the house, which we don't have to get into now. But when that's another one of those situations, when that's over and there's no way of offending anyone involved, I'll have some things to say about that.
Cool.
But if it's the house hunt, I don't know if it's the house hunting, which has made it very difficult to feel stable for a year and a bit, or whether it's my work situation. But I never used to eat crisps. Like I never used to feel compelled to go and buy crisps.
Yeah.
We can't really afford for me to go and buy crisps, especially on days when, I've got a packed lunch. The whole point of that is I'm not supposed to go and do it. Yeah. I have to stop myself going and buying, and this probably sounds ridiculous, I know, but I have to stop myself going and buying second bags of crisps during the day because that's what I want it. For comfort. It's entirely about comfort.
And there's probably a whole lot of stuff around the psychology of the routine of it, maybe. Yeah. I think that's very closely allied to smoking. What I missed when I stopped smoking for a year, and I hate myself. Need I say I hate myself for picking it up again? I think people...
That's a fairly small-scale hate, though. Yeah, you're fine.
If you've listened to this, you know I'm not fond of myself. But it's kind of similar in terms of there's a ritual that goes with it. You leave the place that's probably causing you the stress in any given day, which is for you and I be our desks. and you're going off and you're doing something else, aren't you? You're going and buying and it's nice that you've got a nice prize at the end of it. It's like the smoking. The prize at the end of leaving your desk and going outside is you get to have that cigarette. And it's the same with the crisps. I think as much as anything, it's the ritual that goes with it as much as having, because if someone went to the shop or wherever you get the crisps from, brought them back for you, it wouldn't be half as pleasurable.
Yeah, I never want anything when someone says, does anyone want anything? Yeah. The weird thing about it though is, because quite often when we talk about these compulsions or stuff like this, it's something that you realise about, and realising that you do it is one of the, even if you don't realise you're doing it while you're doing it, but I know I'm doing this while I'm, like,
but I think
a couple of times in the last month, I've got pot noodles at quite near to home time, when I know I'll be eating dinner not long after I get home. And it's like the seed sinks in at about lunchtime that maybe I fancy a pot noodle. And so I can't leave work until, you know, I have to get it at 4:00, even if I'm going to be going home at 5. I know all the way to buying that, and the same with the crisp, all the way to buying it, all the way back eating them. I know that what I'm doing I'm not hungry. It is a compulsion. And
but you can't stop.
I just do it anyway, same with coffee. I drink far too much instant coffee, and it's because it gets me off my seat and going to the kitchen to make coffee. And I've identified that as a problem before. For a year, I was drinking tea pigs.
Yeah.
Because I could make one tea bag stretch for 4 cups, 4 mugs. Wow. That'd last me a day. And I'd know that, like, it was the nutritional equivalent, or whatever you want to call it, of 1 mug.
Yeah.
But I was still getting the routine of going and getting drinks 4 times a day. Totally went out the window. I fell out of the practice of buying the tea pigs, and now I just can't be bothered.
But that compared to, I mean, I was in a routine of really healthy behaviours as well, and I think that's the problem. Is what do you do when you derail yourself? Because that becomes a sort of self-perpetuating sort of cycle of
self-abuse.
Self-abuse is probably about exactly right. So, you know, in August last year, I was swimming twice a day. I'd stopped smoking, walked to and from work. I was feeling as healthy as I think I'd felt since my 20s. But then it stopped, you know, and I don't know when, and I know it's the depression got the better of me and that's what drives it, but I know there were certain events that happened in that period that sort of caused me some introspection, but that's what makes it even worse is you fall off the wagon. You're constantly beating yourself up for doing it, but it's so hard to get back into those good behaviours. It's so complex. It's,
Because being ignorant is kind of a bit of a shield, isn't it?
Yeah, because in some ways it's worse knowing.
Yeah.
Because you sit there and watching, you know, shame people like us on the TV, you know, and you sit there and think, I know I'm part of the fucking problem here, but I don't know how to get myself out of this hole, you know. And it's I don't have any answers at the moment.
It's like when you fall off the wagon.
Yeah.
But you're still kind of strapped to the wagon. Yeah. So instead of just walking along the road of bad behaviours, you're now being dragged behind the wagon.
Face down.
Yeah, which isn't a great metaphor, but it's also not a great feeling.
No,
America.
It's not good.
And England.
Yeah. So in our most cheerful episode today.
And I haven't had lunch yet, so after this podcast, I'll be going and getting a jacket potato.
Nor have I, and I've already snacked on a generic Tesco's pepperami this morning, so that's a really good healthy snack choice.
We yesterday we were on our way back from visiting some friends we hadn't seen in a really long time. They were in Basingstoke. That's their problem. Their house is nice enough so that they're in Basingstoke seems to be working out okay for them, but I've never been able to get on with the place.
No, I'm not keen. I went to college there for a while. I wasn't keen on it.
There was a period of time when I found that whenever I went on a train through Basingstoke, I think I've mentioned this to you before, James, but I don't know if I've recorded it.
Wow.
Whenever I went through Basingstoke, regardless of which direction I was going in, if it was sunny when I got there, it'd start raining at Basingstoke, and then it'd keep raining all the way to my destination.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if there's no hard science there, but it tells me something.
That's definitely personal to you.
Yeah.
I just think, we're quite close to London now.
Grazingstoke.
Yeah.
Or Basinggrad, as someone I know once used to call
Amazing joke.
Amazing joke. That's different. I like that, though. It's good. But anyway, we went to visit them. There was lots of hail, but it's all fine. It's okay. It was nice.
Lots of Roman centurions.
Yeah. I wasn't driving, so Amy had to put up with that,
Yeah.
so that's okay. I had a bit of a nap in the car. Can't say it's just as well I wasn't driving, really.
Yeah.
We got back, and we'd decided that we wanted to get, because we hadn't left enough time to make dinner, and it was Sunday, we decided we wanted to get one of those ready-roasted rotisserie chickens.
Okay. Yeah.
There's nowhere open at 5 o'clock on a Sunday to get one of those. All of the supermarkets in town are shut.
I'm sure if you'd gone into Shirley, you'd have found somewhere to get a whole roasted chicken. There must be.
But would you have to just buy it from one of the bijou little...
It's probably that. There's that Piri Piri place up the road from me. I'm sure they do whole roast chickens.
Do they?
I'm sure they do.
Do they do them at, like, Sainsbury's near the deli counter prices?
Well, I have no idea.
I think that's a bit cheap. I mean, anyway, so we couldn't find one. So I decided that we'd get fish and chips instead because it was the nearest equivalent I could think of. I'm pretty sure this has happened before, and I should have just called you to check. But there's my favourite fish and chip shop in Southampton is just round the corner from where James lives.
Which is weird because it's so close to the actual best fish and chip shop.
Where's that?
It's on St James's Road. St James's Chippy is famously the best chippy in town.
Is it cheap and nice?
Yeah, it's delicious.
Is it open on a Sunday?
I don't know. See, you more than once now you've asked me, are things open on a certain day? I don't fucking know.
But it's taken me long enough to find this one that I like. It's going to be very difficult for me to change my... But
what I like about that chippy, it's called Lynn's, isn't it? What I like about that chippy is it is a proper old style. The only thing they've got missing are nets and plastic lobsters on the ceiling.
Yeah. It's really nice. I really like it. And it's difficult because I grew up a few formative years of mine were spent living in not living in a fish and chip shop, living in a house attached to a fish and chip shop, which we also owned. Yeah. And so I have weirdly high standards for fish and chips. Not like super high. I'll still eat crappy fish and chips, but I will get grumpy about the service stuff like that.
I think the batter's really claggy from Lynn's.
That's all right. Maybe it's because so many other places are so bad. But anyway, so I went to the fish and chip shop. I drove over there. Amy was going to drive. I said, no, it's okay because I hadn't driven at all at the weekend, so I like to have a bit of a drive. Went up there. It was shut. Should have been obvious that it would be. Couldn't find out on the internet. So, in fact, an internet site had lied to me. So then I went to a place in Bedford Place because those are the only other ones I could think of. Okay. I should have thought about the James one.
I think they probably close on a Sunday night. It's very traditional, chippy.
And I already know that Bedford... this is where Amy and I disagree because she didn't grow up in a fish and chip shop. Her main experience of eating bad fast food was mainly from being a student because she grew up in a nice house. Yeah. And so her main experience was, is it a nice place to go and get food from if you're walking back to halls from being out drinking?
All right. So is it open then?
Yeah, well, there's that. I mean, that's true. No, not, if it favours fish and chips over a kebab thing, like it can have a kebab thing in, but as long as it's not in the wind, as long as it's not a kebab place.
So the further back the actual kebab is from the window, is okay. I see.
Which I quite like a kebab, but to be fair,
I've tried a bit of kebab meat, didn't care for it. I've never had a kebab.
A bad kebab can make you a lot iller than a bad almost anything else and make you feel a lot worse.
I went to, when I was at Basingstoke College, one of the lads in our class, his father owned a kebab van, and this lad said he would never eat a kebab.
That tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? I feel like I didn't know you'd ever been to college in Basingstoke. And now it's like the floodgates are open, and I know two things about you having been to college in Basingstoke.
One of my more embarrassing moments is I kind of lost the plot going to college, and I'd not attended for several weeks. At one point, I don't know if I've ever told anyone this story, and one of my lecturers phoned up, and she said, "Is that James?" And I tried to put on a foreign accent, and it wasn't.
Goodness.
I've actually done that in real life.
That's awful.
And she wasn't having it. I had to put the phone down in the end, and I could never go back.
That's awful.
Yeah.
You can never go back because, I mean, people have done worse than that, but you couldn't go back because of you, right?
Just the pure embarrassment of it. But I've actually done that. I have actually I tried to pretend that I was someone else by putting on a horrible foreign accent. I think I probably went Eastern European. That's usually where I go.
See, I'm looking at you now, and I can tell that you feel you're in a shame. You feel ashamed, don't you?
I can feel it. Yeah, I'm reliving it. I'm aware it's a very funny story, but I am reliving it.
It really is a funny story.
I am reliving it to a certain extent. I hated that guy so much, but I don't like this guy much more. But 19-year-old me, fucking what a tool. It was such an easy course. Just fucking turn up. The first time I ever took acid, there were a couple of friends who were a little bit younger than me. I think I was about 21 and they were in their late teens. And they were like 18 and 19. And they were taking it for the first time as well. And was that for anyone listening from Operation U Tree?
Yeah. We were part of quite a big group, most of whom had done it before. And so the two or three of us who hadn't before, but like stuck together, kind of supporting each other and stuff. And he had to, the chap, the other chap, he handled it okay, but he was a bit more zoned out than I was. And he had to call his dad in the morning to explain that he wouldn't be going to college. And he had a plan. We were at a phone box. It was about 6 or 7 in the morning. We were at a phone box in the middle of nowhere. It was like quite light out, and it was in the middle of nowhere in Southampton somewhere. And it's interesting that you can say in the middle of nowhere in Southampton somewhere, and it still makes perfect sense. That's Southampton.
I'm with you.
And I was listening to him, and he was doing really well. And then he got to the point where he had to explain to his dad why he wouldn't be going to college. And he said, he went completely off script and said, I had a bad burger. Bad burger. And his face, just as he was talking, his face dropped. He was like, why am I inventing stuff? That sounds ridiculous. And in the state we were in the particular, I'm saying it now, it doesn't sound that weird. It seems perfectly reasonable.
No, but if you've taken that drug, you quite easily put yourself into the mind of that individual. Oh God, he knows. I've given it away.
And he did really well carrying on, but I just couldn't. I was like laughing so much. I did it quietly while he was still on the phone. But a bad burger, why would
brilliant. Acid is a remarkable drug in so much as, I don't think any other that I've ever tried makes you feel so acutely like you can never look your parents in the eye again because they'll know. I had a similar experience. I think I've told you before on the pod, possibly, but, in 2003, I had a stag weekend, so I got married, and we went to Amsterdam, and we were in Schiphol Airport, and one of my friends phoned in sick from the arrivals lounge of Schiphol Airport. He did not have that job for much longer after that incident.
That's awful. I think that the go-to should always be, because it always seemed a bit unfair when you were a kid growing up. You had the understanding, although I don't know any girl who ever, I don't know of any situation or any girl who actually did use this, but there was always this kind of understanding that if girls mentioned women's troubles, they could get out of pretty much anything.
Yeah.
But I have discovered that the equivalent for both male, this is unisex, anyone can use this. If you mention diarrhea at all, no one wants to know any more about that.
You can leverage society's squeamishness.
Yeah. Absolutely. No one is going to ask you.
Because listening to your story, the bad burger story is perfect, if you ask me.
He didn't get on to diarrhea if he just brought up diarrhea.
Well, that's fine. I had a bad burger. You can read between the lines there. I'm thinking, well, he's shitting through the eye of a needle. Of course he's...
We called him, I say we, I mean he and I called him Bad Burger Dave for a little bit after that.
People who are called Dave seem to attract...
nicknames, I know.
Yeah, but really very, I don't know what you would call it. Like I had a... the word escapes me, but I had a friend called Dopey Dave. I had a friend called Pasty Pastry Dave. And so on and so forth. And
very descriptive.
Yeah, nicknames. They are. But they're not hugely original. But it's just something about the name Dave that sort of attracts that type of nickname.
I feel like...
I'm still friends with Pasty Pastry Dave.
Pasty Pastry Dave. Does he listen?
We don't call him that anymore, obviously. No, he does not.
Why not? He sounds like a man of a certain age. This sounds like
He's
exactly
a
the
very
right
nice guy. I very like. Although he did, my wife posted a picture of my beard on me behind it too, and he rather disparagingly suggested I looked like I was eating a badger, which I thought was a bit unpleasant.
Yeah, you didn't. It looks like a rogue beard. As
Really?
in Rogue, the character Rogue. You've got the white streak. I like it.
Yeah, no, I like it too. I'm very pleased with it.
You don't look like you're eating a badger.
It really hides my face. I really like my beard.
Maybe wearing the skin of a badger on your face.
Yeah, that doesn't help, does it?
No,
and
I
the
don't
blood
know.
smeared over the visible parts.
I've said about your beard on another podcast that I like it because you've probably got around the same amount of white to dark hair on your face. But yours is very distinct, whereas mine is just...
Mine clusters. Yeah, mine clusters. You're salt and pepper, whereas mine sort of streaks.
I don't like it. And the white hairs stick out further. I don't know what that's all about.
I've really come to peace with my beard. I like it. Although I haven't, I've been going a little while with it now, so.
I love mine.
Yeah.
I really do. But I like, we've talked about my dad's beard recently. I liked my dad's beard a couple of years ago. I aspire to that. I'd rather not be the same shape as him. Although obviously in the last year, I've clearly been working on that a little bit, but anyway, so we ended up going, so Bedford Place. We ended up going to fish and chip shops in Bedford Place. They're all right, but they are very much designed and priced for people who've been drinking or who've been out to something in town, which means that those people aren't as worried about how much money they're going to spend. And let's be honest, they're eating on the move and they might be a bit drunk.
Yeah.
So the quality of the food doesn't have to be great. And it's all priced for that. So I was already feeling a bit down about this. And then I totally got stuck in traffic going back because you will have known about this, James, but it's me. So I didn't know this, even though it seems to be a hugely important thing for someone who lives in Southampton to have known. I was trying to travel back to my house, and it's about a mile I was going to be travelling, in a town that had Liverpool playing a football match in it.
Yeah. Busy, was it?
This isn't a traffic...
and we lost as well, so there wouldn't have been a happy atmosphere in town last night.
I know this isn't a traffic podcast. I know it's typically blokey to talk about hellish journeys.
Southampton locks solid after Saints games. It's a nightmare getting out of town.
And I'm not that good a driver. And apparently I'm a bit... There are these two things that happen. We don't get fast food. We don't get takeout food that often.
Yeah.
We're certainly not casual about it the way we should be.
Yeah.
And I'm not that good a driver still yet. And it was quite dark and it was rainy. And so I was already... What I should have done was instead of going and getting fish and chips, once that option fell apart, I should have said, well, we'll just get a Chinese takeaway.
Yeah, you should have gone down to Chinese.
Or we'll just get a pizza
mistake.
or something.
Yeah.
That'll be fine. There's a Domino's right round the corner from us. So I should have just headed straight home. But instead I decided I had to get fish and chips. So the whole time I was waiting in this fish and chip shop where the service wasn't as good as I was expecting. And the food, I could already see the food was there and I'd already committed to it. The 2 bits of fish that I knew were going to be ours once their chips were eventually ready. I was looking at them thinking, I've committed to those. They're not, I can already tell they're not going to be as nice as the ones I wanted.
That could have been someone's mother. You got this existential crisis.
Yeah. So I had this 10 or 15 minute wait there and I was looking there. And so I trudged back to the car, having spent more money on less nice food than I knew I'd planned to have. And then I got in the car and I was like, oh, it seems a bit, there seems to be a lot of traffic around. I wonder what's going on. I'll probably clear up once I'm in the car. Had to reverse into a road. That's one of the things I don't like doing because I'm not a very good driver.
Yeah.
And then I kept making bad decisions that I thought were good decisions because I didn't know that football had been on, but I guessed that these were out of towners. So I thought, well, they're not going to be using all the little side streets that I'm going to be using. So I made some really bad decisions that meant I had to pull out into really heavy traffic, which meant that as well as being a bit depressed about the food, I was also hyper stressed and a little bit terrified for my life, which apparently to me comes out as really low level, too scared to get out of the car road rage.
Oh, wow.
I never thought I'd be that sort of driver, but I was so angry all the way home.
I bet, but it is horrible as well. What you got to remember as well is a lot of Saints fans are from outside Southampton. Like they're being like, you know, Chelmsford, Eastleigh, Winchester. I mean, you know, when I grew up in Winchester, but pretty much everyone who supported the local team was Saints fans and were travelling to Southampton.
So it wouldn't have all been people who'd come down from Liverpool?
There'd have been a fair chunk of those people, but, you know, most people who support Liverpool don't come from Liverpool.
No, that's true. That's a good point. Oh. That was something I wanted to talk about. Good seal
impression if you'd clapped your hands as well.
Ow.
That's a ball on your nose.
No, it was great value for money just because, you know, this is, we do theoretically talk about our kids.
Occasionally.
Was Scarlett good?
Scarlett's been great. She went for a sleepover, with her, grandmother and my mother's partner, so granddad as we like to call him, and her, not really her cousin, but her cousin, and she seemed to have a nice time. It was nice having 2 days with Nicola, without, the pressure of looking after Scarlett. I've felt, especially with half term and so forth, I really acutely felt the pressure of looking after her, and also felt a lot of guilt that I don't think I'm as present for at the moment as I should be. So actually being unburdened, and I don't want to, she's not a burden.
You feel weird
She's the
saying
love
that.
of my life.
Yeah.
But not having that pressure for a couple of days was actually, I felt really good for those 2 days. It was really lovely.
I can understand that.
And nice to connect with Nicola again as just the two of us, and remember that actually, you know, there was, you know, 20 odd years of this before Scarlett, and there is more to our relationship than our daughter.
We've only done that a couple of times so far, but it is weird because you feel a little bit guilty, and also you kind of miss them a little bit. But you and I aren't the sorts of parents, and neither are Nicola and Amy, I think, who talk about how hard it is being parents all the time, because it isn't really. It's kind of the best thing we've done.
It's super fucking easy at the moment. It's just, you know, keep her clean, keep her fed, and sort of keep her interested. That's it, really.
But at the same time, it is a lot of... It is sort of an ever-present, low-level thing that you have to be thinking about, isn't it? So it's kind of...
harder for you than it is for... I mean, you came round with Noah the other day, and I think I'd completely forgotten. It's only 2 years ago. Completely forgotten how high-maintenance toddlers are.
Well, he's high-maintenance, and at the same time, because he gets around a lot, but at the same time, Amy and I aren't used to it. I think we might have talked about this last week, but Amy and I aren't used to it because of our dogs. So we can't... Our dogs aren't as nice as your dogs. So... And that's not fair. They're not as
I agree.
As disciplined as your dogs.
No, they're not as nice. I agree.
Okay, so he doesn't get to go off and just do stuff that other children might. In our house, we've been really bad about. We've never quite got used to child-proofing the house. So it's sort of
The only reason our house looks childproof is we've had to sell pretty much everything over the last year and a half to get our heads above water. So there's nothing in the house for Scarlett to hurt herself with.
Okay, no, that's true. That's so you should start writing like self-help life hack.
That's how to declutter your life, is to like get really strapped for cash, and then all of a sudden you find you don't need all this shit you've bought over the last 20 years. Put it in half handy when you come to sell stuff at a car boot. I still regret the fact Nicola sold my guitar. And I'd never really learnt to play it properly, but I still feel really mopey and unhappy when I realise that my guitar's gone.
That is a bit depressing, because once you'd converted the shed at the bottom of the thing, you probably would have learned how to play guitar.
Definitely not. Although it's not quite as bad as you'll remember my cousin who died a year and a half ago.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, I'm getting increasingly resentful now because I bought a bass guitar when I was 16, and when I was 18 or 19, he borrowed it. Never had it back. He's not fucking left it to me in my fucking will. I reckon, and I feel a bit itchy about making this public record, I reckon he gave it on to someone.
Probably.
I want my fucking bass guitar back.
Don't like the sound of that guy.
I'd learned how to do a basic rock and roll boogie woogie. I'd learned how to do I Want to Be Adored by the Stone Roses. I'm sure there was a couple of other riffs that I'd
It's pretty much enough to start busking.
What I want to do, though...
Would have really been helpful when you were skint.
I still know that, because I know that, you know, doom, 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 doom. I can do that And I keep wanting to go into guitar shops and just pretend that I know what I'm doing with a bass guitar, sort of looking at it.
The first few bits of not Enter Sandman,
No.
Mr. Sandman.
Doom, 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 doom. No, that's you.
Mr. Sandman.
No, that's a basic
Bring
rock
me a
and roll
dream.
boogie woogie sort of.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
You can play it. You can mix it up as well, going by doom 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 doo doom doo doom doom. That's quite exciting when you mix it up a bit.
I don't know enough about Boogie Woogie. I wanted to say about the. I just realised that I wanted to say about the whole thing, the false equivalency of. Well, not the false equivalency, the equivalency of physical and mental health that people do. And that's another thing that's a bit of a staple of any article or post about mental health, that you come up with a few of those that are a bit pithy and a bit good. Good examples. But while I was reading these earlier on, I had this wild stab of empathy that sometimes happens with
Stempathy.
That sometimes happens to me where, and it's kind of a bit like devil's advocate, but not really, where I was reading that and I was thinking, if we accept that a lot more people have mental health issues than ever really even realise it, probably. And after some quite difficult times I had in my mid-30s, I did that. There's that character in there's a scene in the film of American Splendor where he first meets the woman who's going to become his wife, and she's going around all of his friends and giving them diagnoses. And after a particularly rough relationship I went through, I've found myself a little bit like that. You sort of notice the low-level quirks that people have. And I don't think this makes it okay. It certainly doesn't make it okay when people in positions of authority, treat people with mental health issues in that sort of offhand, dismissive way. But there's a way of looking at it that suggests that an awful lot of the people who come up with those stupid false equivalence lines where they say stupid things like, "Oh, I'll just get over it," blah, blah, blah.
I've tried cheering up.
Yeah, most of those people are probably in huge denial, like constantly, about their own shit. That, like, most of the people who say stuff like that, if you look at them for any sustained period of time, you can see, well, yeah, but you barely talk to your wife or husband. You're clearly not, you clearly got problems dealing with your kids and mortality and stuff like that.
There's resentment and anger I find from those sort of people as well. It's like, through gritted teeth, they say, "I'm coping, why can't you?"
Yeah.
I was one of those, kind of, until I kind of accepted where I was. I was sort of, not people with diagnosed conditions, but certainly people who sort of would say, "I'm feeling blue, I don't know." There was part of my internal monologue was like, "Well, I'm coping, so why can't you?" And it's there in all of us. And I like to think I'm reasonably open-minded to these things, but I don't think I was before I genuinely accepted I had a problem.
All of us have limits to our open-mindedness, I think. But yeah. So when you say you were one of those people who was like that about...
Usually you, Nicky. If that's where you're going, I think that's where you were going to go, wasn't it? So usually you.
Right. Well,
I mean, that's not true, but I knew where you were going, and I sort of cut you off at the pass.
So an interesting note.
No, it would usually be. I mean, most of my sort of frustrated bullshit usually came out when I was watching, when I'm watching stuff on the TV, not with people that I'm close to and love.
Oh, okay, good. So not me then.
Not you.
Good, because that would have made the last few years quite awkward retroactively.
Yeah,
retrospectively? Retroactively or spectively?
Retrospectively,
I don't know. Anyway, so...
Because retroactive would be to make some action, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Take an action.
Retrospective would be to look at...
To review it. We've definitely got listeners who are cleverer than us, so they can clarify that, or we can look at a dictionary.
I can't work out if it's a bit awkward now. Seems to be a good time to finish the podcast.
I think so.
Listener, you can listen to all of our previous episodes on twogrownmen.net. You can also find us on your podcatcher of choice. It seems unlikely that you won't already be in your podcatcher of choice listening to this if you have one. But anyway, so you can search for us. Please do review us or comment on our posts or anything. Any sort of feedback to us is welcomed. We like that. You can talk to me on Twitter at NickSite.
You can talk to me. I'm James MONB on Twitter.
And we've got a group on Facebook if you want to follow when we get recent episodes and stuff like that.
Can I just briefly say?
Episodes, not recent
can I just briefly say if I've been talking about the modelling I've been enjoying doing recently. If you're interested in modelling, one of the hard things I think I've said is painting techniques. I hate the painting I do is awful. The Mythbusters guys, in collaboration with Tested YouTube channel, posted last week. They did a Adam Savage one day build, and he was actually making a kit model and goes into great detail in terms of the painting techniques he uses to get the weathering and so on and so forth. I can't recommend it highly enough.
It was the painting that always put me off.
I've made a list of stuff I need. I'm going to start airbrushing because that's the only way to do it. But he goes into tips in terms of like using watercolour and acrylic paints to get weathering and stuff like that. It's very, very interesting.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes, which will be for this episode on twogrownmen.net.
Cool beans.
There's also a Twitter account specifically for the podcast. It's 2GM Pod, I think.
Okay.
And also there's an email account, which is 2gmpodcast at gmail.com. So there are lots of different ways to get in touch with us. I meant to post pictures of James's models in the mailing list, which is at tinyletter.com/2gm.
I tweeted them at Peter Hammerson last night. So
I totally failed to actually do that. So the mailing list is something. It's one of a bunch of different things that
you can see them if you get it on Twitter. If you want to go and look back on my feed, I haven't tweeted that much since then. So if you go, actually, it come up in my, because when you look at, if you look at it, I use a particular Twitter
If you go
client.
onto the Twitter website and find you, it'll be your last picture that
it'd be one of my pictures. So just ignore the dick pics and then that I send
you don't
privately.
Tweet out dick pics.
Of course I don't know.
So
I just text them to you privately.
Yeah. And then I post them on my... If you want to see James's penis, that's on my account. I post them publicly.
I don't know if I should admit this. I have got a stock picture of Dick Van Dyke on my phone, which from time to time I have mailed to female friends for a laugh.
And how did they feel about you mocking the abusive nature of the relationship between men and women online?
They've always been very amused by it because it's been part of a conversation.
They've said that they were very amused, like Scarlett Johansson in that picture of John Travolta from the Oscars last night.
Wasn't it Christian Bale trying to kiss her?
Well, he might have done as well. That's weird too.
I'm sure the one where she looks really pissed off. I'm sure that's Christian Bale, isn't it?
Is Christian Bale doing an impersonation of John Travolta now? That guy can really play whoever he wants.
I give not one shit about the Oscars. I despise award ceremonies with a burning passion.
Down with meritocracy.
Well, it isn't, is it? That's what I was saying last week.
Right.
It's skewing our opportunity to live in a true meritocracy.
And on that bombshell,
we out. I'm dropping the mic. Bye bye.